Welcome to the Blue Ocean podcast, everyone, where we feature conversations with innovators and business leaders driving progress in the clean tech, construction, and the renewable energy sectors. Our guest today is going to be business owner Elizabeth Weiss, featuring her beautiful custom homes and her E2 roofing business, plus all the great support she offers to the Homes for Our Troops project. Today, we're going to be discussing why picking a great contractor for your projects is essential to achieving your dreams. Welcome to the podcast, Elizabeth. How are you doing?
Hey, thanks so much, Kreel. It's so great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I was really excited to have this conversation. I think you bring some very unique background and some unique perspectives on modern day construction, especially with your custom homes. So for our audience, why don't you spend a couple minutes introducing yourself, your background, and your current businesses?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. So I am a custom home builder. Our company is Elizabeth Evans Custom Homes. I also have a second business, which is E2 Roofing. My name was Elizabeth Evans, so E2, that's the genesis behind that. So we are headquartered out of Jacksonville, Florida. We currently serve the states of Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, and Virginia. I founded the company in 2017. Prior to that, I spent about 17 years between military service and working in the private sector in the construction industry. And I was kind of getting to the end of my military service with the National Guard and recognized that with repeat hurricanes in Florida, that there was a lot of contractors that would come to Florida and appear to be rescuing these homeowners, and they'd come in and they'd say, well, we're here to help you with your roof or with your reconstruction of your home, and just sign on the dotted line and we'll take care of everything. And people would give them down payments, and the work would either never happen or it was very shoddy work. And so I thought to myself, there has to be a better solution for Florida residents to have someone come in that time of need that is actually a trusted partner that would take care of them and actually be there long term. And so that was the genesis behind starting of the two companies back in 2017. And here we are 8 years later, and several hurricanes, and of course expanding past just, hurricane relief and actually working with people to help, build that dream home that they're looking for.
Excellent. Thank you. So your initial idea, the genesis of really being able to help Floridans, how did that go? How has that been? Have you really seen that has been a great impact? And how has your business responded as a result?
Absolutely. I mean, 2017, we had Hurricane Irma, which started down in the Keys, devastating impact, Hurricane Cat 4, and it really gutted the entire state of Florida, all the way up through Jacksonville and then several other coastal states. And it's been repetitive since then. Hurricane Michael, we had Matthew prior to that, Ida, and so it's over and over again that these homeowners are getting hit by storms that are affecting their livelihood. Each time they're having to pay a deductible, they're having to deal with their insurance, what's covered, what's not covered. Help me read and understand this. It's very confusing. And so to be able to be there for a homeowner, I mean, they're somebody's parents, they're somebody's grandparents, that's somebody's sister or daughter. And to be that trusted partner to them to say, just let us help you. Even if we're not the vendor that you go with, we can at least help you through this process. It's very fulfilling work.
Great. I would imagine also, so that is running parallel with the custom home. So probably very different niche market and clientele. Tell me a little bit more about the custom home side of things.
Well, a hurricane doesn't discern which neighborhood it's going to hit, right? So the hurricane, hits the neighborhood that has 1,500 square foot houses, and it hits the neighborhood that has, 8,000 square foot homes that are on, oceanside or Gulf side. So, our clientele ranges that full span. Now, it is a very niche market of people that desire to build a custom home. It's not a surprise. That is more expensive venture than buying a home that's pre-existing or buying a home from someone else. It's also quite the relationship tester to embark on building a custom home with your significant other. So that is a niche market, and it can be extremely overwhelming because, you walk into an existing home and the choices have already been made. You walk into a tract home builder and maybe you get to pick out the color of your cabinets, the color of your countertop, and whether or not to have carpet, hardwood, or laminate flooring. with a custom home, it's an open palette. It's a blank sheet of paper. And so that is a very overwhelming process and can be very timely, and it can be very expensive if there are not kind of left and right limits in working with the right team to help guide you down that path.
Yes, I would imagine so. So could you explain to the audience, if someone was wanting to go down this path, what would be the right questions that they would be asking to a potential contractor, like a long-term relationship here? I think we even joked off air, that if you pick the wrong person, then the disaster that can happen can really put pressure and stress on a relationship. And I think there's some crazy statistic that even like marriages break up over like house renovations or even home constructions. To avoid all of that, what type of questions do people need to be asking, and how do you differentiate yourself from other contractors in the space to provide a high quality experience for your clients?
Well, I think number one, first of all, transparency is key. So not only in, with your client, but transparency with, amongst your clients. So let's just say husband and wife, for example, they need to have agreed upon goals of what they're trying to achieve, agreed upon budgets of what they're trying to achieve. No, those can be adjusted throughout the process, but that's the first key to success is that it is that open communication and transparency between the builder, the designer, the architect, and the client at hand. I think you and I spoke to before that, building a home is probably the most expensive undertaking that you will take on in your life. Same as purchasing a home. Either way, buying or building a home is the most expensive thing you'll ever do. So wouldn't you want to do the most due diligence before making that purchase or making that investment? You often hear of people that I need to have my knee replaced, I need to have my hip replaced, or I need to have stents put in. Oh, I'm going to get a second opinion. I'm going to get a third opinion. I'm going to look to where my doctor went to medical school. I'm going to see how, what his or her success rate has been. But are you doing that due diligence with the builder that you're selecting? And I think that's so critical, is really going through and seeing what credentials does that person have, what reviews or testimonials do their other clients provide, so that you can really walk away feeling, okay, this person has been tested, this person is qualified, and this person has other people that are willing to share their experiences with me.
I guess being so in the industry for so long, you've probably heard a number of like nightmare stories of scenarios that have just gone terribly wrong. I would love for you to just like briefly describe the picture of what a nightmare scenario looks like, and then present a case study of one of the best experiences that you've had with some of the clients that you've worked with.
It's ironic because my last deployment with the military was in 2016. My parents were moving to Savannah for their retirement, and they said, we're going to buy this beautiful home. It's on the golf course on this island that we really love, and we're going to renovate it. And I was like, this is great. But my parents, being my parents, did not want to bother me with this while I was deployed. And I came home to a terrible situation. No written contract. My father was just writing checks when the builder said it was time to write checks. There was no schedule that was agreed to. The contractor couldn't tell him when the project was going to be done. There were subcontractors calling my parents saying I haven't been paid. It's just a nightmare situation when here you are going to your probably the last home that my parents will own. Investing $600,000-$700,000 to turn this home into what you want it to be. And there's no paperwork trail to hold this builder accountable, and then here I am as a builder. These are my parents, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is what I do, so that's probably about the most nightmarish situation.
Very stressful sounding.
Yes. But it also, made me take a step back and say, okay, I see everything I don't want people like my parents to be able to have as a bad contractor story. Everyone has a bad contractor story. People don't walk around and say, let me tell you about this great contractor experience I had. The truth is everybody has a bad contractor story. And so I said, I'm going to make sure that there are deliverables that we have. There are things that hold us accountable. In our contract, payments for us are based on deliverables. So we don't get paid until the site's cleared. We don't get paid until the slab's poured, until the framing inspection's passed. So it's not that we're getting paid on a timeline by the calendar day. We're getting paid by an accomplishment that's being done. We have a schedule. We have a baseline schedule that's part of the contract. We make a commitment with the client, how long their build's going to take. For most of our builds, it's 6 to 9 months. Our longest build took us 11 months. And we have actual damages. So if I deliver that home, for every day that I'm late, it's between $100 and $300 a day, because I recognize that that client is having to pay for housing someplace else that they're not in their home. And that has an actual cost to it. And so I am holding myself accountable, and I feel that trust that builds with that transparency sets us apart from other builders.
I think your unique perspective of working with the military for so long and being so diligent on the details and paperwork and all of that obviously is a massive asset for you stepping into this realm, because you come with a pre-existing skill set that is so responsible and able to fulfill on that. It really shines through when you answer that question. I think it's wonderful. And I think probably your clients feel very well taken care of in the process.
Yeah, one thing that I think the military does extremely well, and, to an essence, so does Amazon, is logistics, right? They figure out how to get a lot of things to a lot of places very quickly without excuses, right? And so you could say for the military, well, it's because they have a gigantic budget, right? So of course they could do it. Well, that's not the case with Amazon. You don't pay extra for shipping and it still shows up the next day, but it comes with planning. And so for us, what we realized, and we realized this during COVID, was it's not an excuse that, oh, it's COVID. Windows are taking 16 weeks, or this material is taking 20 weeks. Let's figure out upfront how long everything's going to take. Let's order everything up front. We'll put it in climate-controlled warehouses, and then we will start construction once we have these items in hand, so it's the least disruptive amount of time to the client.
Yeah, brilliant. And proper planning makes every project much, much smoother.
Absolutely.
For your clients, what's the way that you've generally come about finding them? Has that been word of mouth, or do you have an advertising team? How does that all work?
Definitely on the custom home side, it's word of mouth, because again, it's a very niche client. So, you're talking about someone investing between $1 and $4 million outside of the cost of a lot to build a home.
Mm-hmm.
That is a niche client. And these clients are not going to Google, I want to build a custom home. They're not, okay, let me Google who to use. They're talking to their friends that already have a custom home. They're talking to people at their clubs that they belong to, maybe at their church type communities that they belong to, other people that are in their socioeconomic status that we intend to have a positive relationship with, that then turn around and refer us to other clients.
Amazing. Inside the industry right now, shifting a little bit from exactly what you do, but to a little broader sense, what shifts do you see, or major trends do you see in the industry right now?
I will say that I'm very concerned about housing affordability, which probably seems ironic given the side of the niche that I'm on. But housing affordability is a massive issue. I'm talking to you right now from Nashville, Tennessee. The ability to live and work is becoming more and more difficult. We see it with the service industry getting pushed farther and farther and farther out. Have obviously the government shutdown now and the impacts that has on, air traffic controllers. And now you have flights that are disrupted because they don't have enough people working. There's a lot of uncertainty right now as far as the financial picture looks like and the political picture looks like. And so that causes people that are in their current home to say, I'm uncertain what the future holds, so I don't want to take the leap to invest in a new home or move to a different home, or I can't even afford to move to a larger home or a new home because, yes, my home has increased in value, but I still can't afford something that's newer as a result.
How have those trends affected, or those challenges affected your business today?
Well, you're seeing things stay longer on the market. You're seeing people that are coming up with creative financing options for their clients. You're seeing contingencies, like just as you do in real estate. I am going to sign a custom home contract with you contingent upon the sale of my other home, contingent upon being able to purchase land. So you see that. I've talked to another builder the other day who's doing a lot more renovations, that is renovating homes, but is not getting paid on those renovations until the home sells. So, there's just more creative ways that builders are finding to continue to keep their books full while we have this uncertainty in the market.
I know when we talked earlier, you emphasized, a concern about the rising price, and also how that led you into supporting Homes for Our Troops. For the audience, why don't you take a minute or two to explain what that project's about and how that is helping alleviate some of these challenges that you've just described?
Sure. So Homes for Our Troops is a 501c3 nonprofit based out of Taunton, Massachusetts, outside of Boston. And I was introduced to them in 2020. They are an organization that builds completely mortgage-free homes for severely injured veterans from Iraq and Afghanistan. And they've built about 420 homes nationwide at this point. I built my first home with them in 2020 in Jacksonville, Florida. And at this point, we have built 4 homes for them. And by the end of this year, going into probably spring of next year, that number will be 9 going on 10. So, why am I interested in Homes for Our Troops? As a 24-year veteran of the military, having served in the War on Terror on both fronts, obviously a very passionate cause of mine. Any one of these soldiers could have been one of my soldiers. And so the fact that our country, this wonderful nonprofit, has found a way to pull sponsors together, by donating materials, donating light fixtures, donating flooring, and then paired that with builders to create these homes for our veterans, I can't think of a better cause.
I would agree. Thank you for your service. And I think your ability to support this cause will probably be very well received. So I love that. Doing another little shift then, moving forward, if we vision what's ahead for you and your business, where do you see the next 6 to 12 months headed for both of your businesses, on the custom home side and on the roofing side?
I think we're scratching the surface on technology and integrating, that next step of AI into our business and how we can sharpen ourselves with that. We've certainly embraced it on the marketing side of our business. 5 years ago, it was, what's your position on Google? Are you on the first page of Google? Are you doing reverse marketing so that if somebody's talking in their home, all of a sudden your banner shows up when they open their computer? But really exploring AI and what more it can do for us is really the focus right now. With Homes for Our Troops, since we are doing repetitive builds for them in various locations, right now we're working to see if we can, capitalize on AI and build somewhat of a how-to book for these homes. They're not all exactly the same, of course. You might have 250 plus or minus square feet. You might have a left entry garage, a right entry garage, but the overall sequencing of events is the same. So, nobody's going to say every house is exactly the same, but relatively speaking, if I can create a process that is a how-to book internally for my people, I've now removed some of that human error out of the equation. And so the more that I can systemize and standardize, then a better finished product and a more efficient product I believe we're creating.
I would agree with you. You kind of answered my question as I was thinking about it. Like, okay, say you have this all put together. What's the benefit? More efficiency, lowering cost of homes, providing a higher quality service consistently, probably once again showing how unique you are in the marketplace compared to other contractors that may fluctuate in quality based on changing decisions or subcontractors and all of that. Could you speak a little bit to the power of having like that level of experience and consistency when moving forward with the projects?
I mean, everyone likes to be informed, right? So, on the roofing side of our business, for example, customer calls in, they would like an estimate for a roof. We go out, we estimate their roof. Okay, we want to move forward, sign the contract. They've got to get HOA approval. We've got to get a permit. We've got to schedule the crew. And we have to schedule the date for the job. There's days that go by that is anyone talking to that customer. And so they're like, what's happening? Every Friday, our customers get an update. Here's what's happening. This is the date we anticipate HOA approval. So this is the date we anticipate you being scheduled. So this is the date we anticipate your roof being complete. It's the same thing on the construction side. Design selections, there's timetables, to permitting. Here's what's happening this week, to every Friday, once we're under construction, they get a full photo report. Here's all the items that were accomplished this week. Here's what's scheduled for next week. And oh, by the way, Mrs. Smith, please remember, November 14th is your drop dead date. Here's your 3 tile selections that we still have to make. So it is that free flowing, constant communication, especially when you're building a home for someone that doesn't reside nearby. Let's face it, you're building a custom home for someone that is retiring from Massachusetts and moving to Florida. They don't want to have to constantly make trips to babysit their builder. That's what they're paying me for. So I should be communicating back to them.
Yeah, I think your communication and your attention to detail probably shines a lot for your clientele. What do you think's some of the things that you do really well in your business?
I think that probably in my business, my ability to multitask is probably one of my greatest strengths, right? And you really get that from the military. At a young age, going to West Point, having to balance being a Division I tennis player with being a civil engineer major with a math minor, and then you've got your military requirements, and it's like, how do you fit it all into a day, and excel in every function, right? And then how do you go be a combat engineer, company commander, clearing the roads for bombs in Iraq and building base camps in Afghanistan and not lose your mind, right? It's easy in hindsight because it's like, well, today was a rough day, but it wasn't Baghdad, It's like nobody shot at us, so, the perspective is great. So, the ability to multitask, one thing that I think is so important is the ability to listen. And a lot of times with my clients, it's the ability to listen. And I'm not there to solve a problem for them. I'm just there to listen and to hear what they have to say, because they're trying to talk through a decision or talk through a problem or talk through a thought. And so it's just the ability to listen and then say, okay, all right, are we good? All right, let's move on to the next order of business. So, because a lot of times people want you to make decisions for them. And I have to remind them, this is your house. You can't ask me what looks good or what is my opinion. I can tell you, I can show you applications of this in other homes, but at the end of the day, I want you to be happy. And, I've certainly built homes for people that is completely not my taste. That's not my style. And that's okay because they're happy with it.
Fantastic. So then on the flip side of that, what are some frustrating or time-consuming events in your business that you'd love to change?
The ankle biter stuff, right? The person that gets frustrated and they're like, well, I want to talk to Elizabeth. And it's like, okay, and I will talk to them, right? But 9 times out of 10, that project manager, that superintendent has already talked to me. We've already had a conversation about it and the decision's already been made, but I absolutely will talk to them. But it's this empowerment of the decision's going to change because they talked to me. And 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, it doesn't change. The email, my goodness, life would have been easier without email, right? Because just the time it takes to clear the junk from your folder every day, right? So having more time in the day. And we all wish we could have that. And right now, my biggest challenge is geography, right? With home builds in Pensacola, Tampa, Orlando, a roofing division in Jacksonville, Florida, and then another home build in Bristol, Virginia, and then raising 3 kids in Nashville, Tennessee. How do you be everywhere all the time? And you can't. And so I think one of the things I work on a lot as a parent and a business owner and a spouse is I'm going to give that which I'm giving attention to 100% in this moment. And then I'm going to move on to the next thing, and it's going to get 100% of my attention in that moment too.
Well said. As we move towards the end here, I want to ask you kind of a bigger vision question. Where do you think the blue ocean, meaning like in a marketing term where it's like uncharted waters or the big opportunity, is in your industry. What do you see that as being right now?
Uncharted waters as far as how we market ourselves as builders and roofing contractors?
It could be this is an open-ended question. You could take it in any direction. It would really be like, what is the biggest opportunity that you see right now in your business or industry or the marketplace based on all of your experience to date?
So if I were to look in reverse, right? Not that the past is a predictor of the future, but the world changed with the iPhone. The world changed when everybody started having an internet address, right? That you could look up about someone on the internet. The world changed when all of a sudden everybody had a QR code, right? All my trucks have QR codes because everybody wants to be able to snap a QR code. I mean, gosh, that's how we get our menus now since COVID, right? I think we scratched the surface with AI in the building and construction business. I think that we still have a generation, I know as I do as part of my workforce, that, I'm fast approaching that generation of this is how we've done it. Why would I want to change how we've done it? And so I think really seeing where that goes over the next 5 to 10 years as far as automation is concerned, I think that there's going to be some dynamic efficiencies that change in our industry that will become a lot less human dependent. And that's a great thing. It's not something that scares me. I think that's a good thing.
I would agree with you. I think the early adopters in every industry will be the game changers in that industry, raising the bar of what scaling and streamlining solutions looks like in a business. Because we also have to understand that the businesses that are starting today are already starting full AI integration. So they're already ahead of the curve. So the businesses that have this experience and are adapting will be there with them. But the companies that are going to be really slow to do it, I'm just not sure if they're going to be able to turn the tide.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. Your description of like, what's the biggest opportunity, taking advantage of technology and staying relevant in any industry, but particularly in the construction industry, which I do think is slower to respond than potentially other industries. It's probably accurate.
That's right. One way that we saw it a couple of years ago on the roofing side of the industry was Owens Corning, one of our roofing suppliers, is you can upload a picture of your house onto their site, and then you can pick out your shingles. So you can see what your house will look like with those shingles, right? So I see opportunity for all sorts of things. Instead of my clients going to Floor and Decor or, some other showroom to Kohler and picking out all of their plumbing fixtures or things like that this becomes some 3D model that they're able to pull up on their computer and plug and play, and they're seeing and walking through their new kitchen and seeing how stuff feels and fits, almost like a virtual reality experience. And so, and they're doing that from their current living room. They're not driving across town and they're not dealing with that kind of stuff. And so that's where I see, I'd love to see that advancement in technology because I know that it's coming. Love to be part of that adoption.
Spoken like a true visionary and an entrepreneur. Elizabeth, it's been great to have you on the show. I want to make sure that we highlight all the places people can get a hold of you. So if you want to drop your links, we'll put them in the show notes, of course, but also just why don't you speak them to the audience now?
Sure thing. So we have 2 websites, www.eecustomhomes.com. And then we have www.e2roofingjax.com. So those are our 2 company websites. And then if you're looking to find out more about Homes for Our Troops, they are HFO.
Excellent. Thank you. To everybody, if you've enjoyed the show, please drop a like and a comment below. Reach out if you have any other questions. And we look forward to seeing you in the next Blue Ocean Solutions podcast. Take care, everyone. Thanks for being here, Elizabeth.
Thanks, Kreel. Bye.